Watch the signed card. I'm gonna lose it into the pack just like so. I've got a window behind me that is completely solid glass. Now watch the cards. 3, 2, 1. One card passes through the glass. 1. One card passes through the glass. The signed 4 of hearts. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the studio. That is right, it has been a very long time since I've been in this space. Feels like the old days, but it's so good to be back. And today I've got a card trick tutorial for you that teaches a trick that I actually performed at my first ever magic gig. This is one of the old favorites of mine, and it's a little bit situational. It's not something I perform on the regular, it's not go-to by any means, but when the situation is right, the reactions that this trick gets are absolutely insane. Literally, I love performing this trick. I know you're gonna love performing it as well. So without further ado, grab yourself a deck of cards and let's learn Card Thru Window. One of the reasons I chose to come back to the studio specifically for this trick is because of the large lovely windows that we have here. It's the perfect place to perform this trick, and there's actually 3 variations. There's a super practical one that I use most of the time. There's one for the camera that specifically works for the camera, which is so visual. And then there's a 3rd variation that actually uses a signed card. That can be done in person or on camera, so best of both worlds. And yeah, it really does use a signed card, no duplicates. This first variation is a little bit tricky to show you on camera. It is designed for in-person and works best in-person, but I've tried to adapt it as best as possible for the camera. I'll show you exactly how I've done that in a second. But first we have a card selected, so let's just go for this one, the 7 of hearts. Fantastic. I take the 7 of hearts, I lose it into the center of the pack, and it actually travels right through the window that really is on the other side of the glass. Cards are everywhere. Let's see how that's done. So yeah, I'll be honest when I say that that version is really not built for the camera. It really does not look good at all because the window isn't in frame, and so it's just obvious when I show you that the card is there that it's probably been there from the beginning. But in person, no one ever thinks that because they're not limited by the frame, they're not limited by where the camera points you, they can look wherever. And yet they still don't see the card. That is the beauty of doing this in person. So how? How do they not see the card? What's going on here? Well, first things first, you position your audience in the right way. This is all about audience management. Audience management is so important when you're performing magic, and here it's especially crucial because it's not just about the angle of the trick, it's about the angle of the audience, which is a little bit unusual in magic, but it does occasionally happen. But before we even talk about that, yes, the card is a duplicate, and yes, I stuck it on the window beforehand. That is the method to this variation. The other variations have completely different methods, but here, simple is better. You don't need always a super complicated method. Sometimes direct and to the point actually does the work better than other methods. So here, yes, all I did was beforehand, I went outside with some tape and I stuck the window. I stuck the card to the window, although technically I did also stick the window to the card. What sells it is the free choice. What sells it is the force of the 7 of hearts. You need to force your duplicate card in a really convincing way. Now here, I don't have an audience because I am alone, but I just forced myself. I just pretended I was picking a random card when I just pulled out the 7 of hearts. Again, I'm proving that you don't always need a super complicated method. Now, if I was doing this in front of an audience, a classic force, a riffle force, hell, even a crosscut force, dare I say it, you know, any force will work so long as it's super convincing. If I want to be really ballsy, I can go for like a psychological force, but probably wouldn't go near that. But yeah, with this method, there's really not much to it other than audience management. And this is the variation I performed at my first ever magic gig. And I've spoken about this gig before. My first gig, it wasn't very good. It was a very, very bad gig, and a lot went wrong, including this trick. It went wrong ever so slightly, where the card actually fell off the window because I hadn't stuck it down properly enough. It fell off so it was on the ground. So when I sprayed the cards, people had to actually go outside to find the cards, which you could argue added a bit more drama. At the time, it felt like it had just gone wrong because it had taken away that impact of seeing it visually on the window, which I do prefer, but you can go down the other route if you want to. Another thing you can do, which I've never tried myself personally, but I'm very much looking forward to trying one day, uses an accomplice. You can actually have someone hidden outside with a pack of cards, and in this case, you don't even need a force. Whatever card is selected, they overhear what the card is, they find that card in their deck, and they stick it to the window. That, I think, is a really possible thing. Obviously, it requires an accomplice, but I'm sure that would have great impact. Frankly, I could sit here and list variations of this trick all day, but I'm gonna answer a couple of the questions that I know people might have. The first one being, what if they see the card too early? It is a risk. It is something that can happen, and there are a couple of things you can do to avoid it. The first one being, hide the card in a corner or behind a curtain or something. It doesn't need to be slap bang in the center of the window where everyone's gonna see it and there is a risk that people will see it too soon. It can be in a more discreet location. Again, if you want to go down the more natural route and have the card at the bottom, you know, as if the cards have dropped and then that's where the card goes through the window rather than up here, then, you know, there are customizations. But my main piece of advice comes down to audience management again. And the one thing to know about audience management is it shouldn't be like herding sheep, right? It shouldn't be everyone stand here and look at me and don't look anywhere else, because then obviously they're gonna get suspicious and they might see the card. What I've sometimes done is hidden the card on the window and then gone around the room, performing tricks elsewhere. I'm not worried about anyone seeing it because again, it's in a corner, it's behind a curtain, whatever. No one is going to know that it's there if they're not looking for it. And then, when I notice that some audience members are standing by the window, I go to them. Rather than dragging the audience over to me, come see this trick by the window, that's just a really weird thing to do. Wait until they're naturally in position and then go to them and perform the trick. It feels so much more natural and perfect, honestly. I mean, when you spray the cards at the window and the card is there, minds are going to be blown. It's a lovely variation. But perhaps you're the sort of magician who wants to perform something quick and visual for the camera, in which case this next variation is for you. As you can see, I've got a window behind me and we're gonna go for a random card. In this case, we will go for, the Jack of Diamonds right there. Watch the Jack of Diamonds. I place it all the way into the center of the pack, just like so. Solid glass, nothing on the glass. Watch right here. 3, 2, 1. As you can see, the Jack of Diamonds has penetrated through solid glass and ended up on the other side of the window. Alright, so how was that variation done? Personally, I think camera tricks and magic that uses editing and VFX has almost become its own art form that has transcended magic. And yes, this trick does use editing, which I understand is not for everyone. Some people are vehemently, is that a word? I don't even know. Vehemently against editing magic, and that's fine. I'm not here to convert you. I'm not here to tell you that VFX is magic. It's just an interesting thing. To me, if it looks like magic, then it's magic. And so I'm gonna teach this as if it is magic. Basically, what I did is I opened up Premiere Pro, that is my preferred editing software. Taking a look at the footage, as you can tell, there is part of the footage that you don't see in the final product, and that is me reaching round the back of the window to stick the Jack of Diamonds to it. I'm gonna remove that part of the footage from the final thing, and then in order to have that card appear after the spray of cards, I'm going to create what's called a mask. Masks are a beautiful thing in editing. I use them all the time, maybe without you even realizing. I remember once there was sort of a piece of dust or something that fell off my ceiling while I was recording, and there was this ugly little thing sort of floating down the screen, and I used a mask to get rid of it, and you can't tell that it's there. I can't even remember what part of the video it was in. But here we're going to use a mask to reveal that card as the other cards drop away from the window. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video as to how I did that, but if you're super into video editing and you want to know more about this sort of magic, then I'm going to create a whole video on the Magician Club going into this in much more detail. Originally, I was going to end the video about there and teach the signed card variation in a video of its own, a sort of part 2 of this tutorial. But having come back home and thought about it a bit more, That's rubbish, that's a terrible idea. You just want to know how to do this trick with a signed card, and so let's get right into it. So I've moved the camera to my living room where we have these lovely doors with glass windows. These will be perfect. This time it really is a random card that's selected. It is not a force whatsoever. I'll close my eyes this time. So the 4 of hearts is the card, and we will have the 4 of hearts signed. Here we go. Excellent. Mainstream Mike has signed in Sharpie. Remember when I used to have a cactus called Sharpie? That was weird. Okay, let's take this card and do something incredible. There's only one card in the world that looks like Mike's signed 4 of hearts. And what we can do is we can lose that card into the pack, and we only need about half the deck anyway, so yeah, I can get rid of these cards, that's absolutely fine. We'll work with this. So I'm gonna lose Mike's card into the center and hand the pack to the spectator. At this point, they can shuffle, they can give the cards a nice mix, losing his card even further. I have no idea where it is. And now, if they can, I'm going to ask them to help me with the trick by spraying the cards, springing them at this window right here. They can even throw them, it really doesn't matter. This is, of course, completely solid glass. I've not had special windows installed or anything. This is normally their window. This is solid glass on both sides. They're gonna throw the cards on the count of 3. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. One card passes through the glass. I've caught it perfectly. Through solid glass, not just any card, but the very same signed 4 of hearts. All right, so here is how to do that signed card variation. I absolutely love this trick. It's super visual and really, really practical. You're gonna be surprised at just how practical this is. There's a couple of techniques that are used, some of which are common magic techniques, so if you already know these things, it's just about putting them together to make this effect possible. So, what is the first technique? Well, the first one is quite simply a double lift. It looks like I'm losing the 4 of hearts into the center of the pack. I get rid of half of the pack just like so. I push this into the center, and the 4 of hearts is under my control perfectly. In fact, it's in my pocket. So you're gonna take the signed card and you're actually going to have another card underneath it. So you can have a break under this top card and place that one just like so. So now this is 2 cards. So I've got a break under the top 2 cards, super simple. So I'm gonna lose their card, I'm gonna turn both over and then pick up just the top one, place it into the deck. I wanna place it quite low down into the deck. So sort of 2/3 the way down into the pack and leave it protruding. At this point, I switch hands with the deck. So now I'm holding it with my right hand, and I'm just gonna thumb away about half the pack and place that in my pocket. What this does is it leaves the 4 of hearts on top of the deck in my pocket, and at this point I'm wearing nice open pockets. If you have a suit jacket or a jacket like I'm wearing, it just goes in there. If not, back pocket is perfect. I've done that multiple times, so it just goes in the pocket. So the 4 of hearts is already away. At this point I am well ahead of the game. I just pretend that this is the 4 of hearts. I get them to shuffle this packet. And by the way, getting rid of half the cards actually serves a purpose, not just in the method of the trick, but it actually helps you out because in a moment you're going to spray cards at the window. So if you're only spraying a smaller amount of cards, that's actually helpful. And that is something that I use to justify why we're getting rid of half the deck. Just in a minute, we're going to throw cards around. Don't want to throw around too many. Takes a while to pick up, so we'll get rid of half the deck. It's super easy to justify. So at this point, I lose the card. They have shuffled, and I'm going to very quickly teach them how to spray the cards. So bend them backwards and release them. I'm basically going to teach them a spring. If they don't know that, I can get them to spread the cards out and simply throw them at the window. That works really well. Just remember to ask them to spread the cards out, because if they're in a clump, if they're perfectly squared up, they're just pretty much going to hit one area, and you do need a little bit of cover. You need the cards to be nice and spread, which is why a spring works great, because under that cover, you're going to make it look like the card's gone through the window. But how do we do that? So while they're shuffling, you'll notice that you have 2 free hands. And it's at the moment that they stop shuffling, that they're ready to spring the cards, that you're going to get ready. And by get ready, I mean you're going to go back to this pocket and you're going to take the 4 of hearts and you're going to hide it, essentially. That's all we're doing. But it needs to be done in a way that's really, really natural. So I'm going to turn away from the audience and towards the window. And at this point, I am gesturing about the window. I'm showing that this is solid glass. I'm knocking on it. I can get the spectators to come forward and they can feel that the glass is solid. That is super important. Even if it's their window, I get them to feel that it's solid, because this is a moment I want them to remember. And also, Magic that's more than visual is always really, really great. I always talk about this. Use more senses in your magic and the magic is more memorable. I dip into my pocket, which is super natural by the way, it's super casual. I can put both hands in my pockets if I want. This does not look like I'm doing anything suspicious. I've just got my hands in my pockets, completely normal thing to do. But inside this pocket, what I'm gonna do is get into a back palm. I'm going to hide that card behind my hand. Now, if you don't know a back palm, it is super easy. I'm gonna explain it in 10 seconds. Hold a card just like so, fingers on one side, thumb on the other. Get into Spider-Man grip or rocker grip, and then wrap the index and the pinky around it. Straighten out all your fingers, and you have done a back palm. Super easy. It's a really nice way of vanishing a card. You can use it as a vanish, and you can also use it as an appearance, and that is what we're going to do to make it look like I'm catching the card on the other side of the glass. It's entirely possible for you to spray the cards, but I do think it adds so much more if they do it. But basically, it's just about timing. At the moment that the most cards are on this window, I'm going to go from this position to this position. I'm going to reveal the card that's behind my hand, thus making it look like I've caught it. And I can add a bit of sort of movement, like I'm really trying to catch something. If I was catching something, I wouldn't just do that. I would add a little bit of movement as if I'm sort of moving towards something, snatching a card out of midair. So here we go, 3, 2, 1. Just like so, the card appears, and it's the signed card. And there we go, that is it for this tutorial. Bit of an unusual one, kind of 2 videos mashed together, just because it felt so natural to put all of these methods in one video rather than 2. I hope you enjoyed this one, a lot of work went into it. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button down below if you did, and subscribe to the channel if you're new and you like this sort of content. Here, I do anything and everything to do with magic, so if you like magic or you're a magician, make sure to subscribe, join me on the road to 20k, and I will see you very, very soon. Until then, take care.